All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Greg Gutterman, retired from the Air Force in 2018, and I haven't had a chance to be on stage since then. Yeah, I'm super excited about this. I could probably talk for about 4 hours. In fact, they told me, introduce Mr. Sick, please do that. But they didn't give me any time frame on how long that could take. So since I got an audience, sir, it just might be me. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We actually crossed paths back in our wild days a little bit. I was about 6 months behind him at Rantoul. Anybody remember that? Chanute Air Force Base. Anybody remember that place? So we used to bring our aircraft maintenance officers through there and our intercontinental ballistic missile officers through there, and I was an ICBMer. And if you want to see what caged animals look like when they're uncaged, that was Rantoul back in that time frame. So you can see that he's done pretty well since then. Mr. Sick's a member of the DoD Executive Service. He's a big cheese down at Air Force Sustainment Center. There's about 43,000 personnel in that area. And as you guys know, we cannot run our United States Air Force without our Sustainment Center brethren. All of our airplanes being 30 years old, you heard about that, and we keep them flying and keep them operating because we have great professionals like Mr. Sick and his team down there at Air Force Sustainment Center doing strategic planning, resource management, and all those things that need to be happening, and with his leadership, all those things have been happening, keeping the world's most feared and respected Air Force flying and sustained ever since. He has 31 years experience, retired as a colonel in our United States Air Force, did a stint out in industry, and now he's doing an SES job. So if there's somebody who knows all sides of this business space, it's him. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. Sick.
Thank you, sir. Good job. Okay, good afternoon. How's everybody doing? So it's always fun to come in after lunch. Everybody's like a little nappy. Hopefully, all of you had, I heard the chocolate brownie cake is really good. So just have an extra dose of that, sugar up a bit, and at least power through this next segment. They also told me they had this pre-staged, I guess, for the panel after me. So I might panel myself here for a minute and have discussions. What do you think, Jeff? I don't know, Jeff. I'll moderate. So just roll with me, because I don't know where I'm going to go with this thing, so it should be interesting. I was joking with Sean and some of the AFCEA crew, which, by the way, hands for them doing this and pulling this off. AFCEA, and this is always a lot of fun every year, and they keep inviting me, which I joke. I say, like the last thing I want to do is IT. When I took this job, I kept saying that, right? My predecessor was Steve Marani, Mr. Marani up at OSD now, and then went off to OSD. He did the Operation Warp Drive, to come up with the VAX and all this stuff. And now he's like a 8 billion SES thing, right? Got promoted a million times over. But he loved IT, right? He had a system called Elvis, which I was like grown, because if you're not like tied to an Avenger theme or Iron Man or something, it's not cool. So we tried to tell him, like, at least get with the right genre when you're going to pick your IT platform. So that's like rule one, right? Get in the right genre. But yeah, Steve Marani loved IT. And I kept saying, I don't want to talk IT, but you guys keep inviting me back, the MITS, the WITS. So it's like, okay, I'll come. But I'm not going to talk all the IT stuff, so I hope that's okay. But I do. So to lighten it up, I always joke, I have videos every year, multimedia, right? And I taunt the IT gods that will try to do that. So we'll see if it works today. I did have a Moneyball clip with Brad Pitt, his character Billy, and then Jonah Hill, his character Pete. And Sony Entertainment and our lawyers couldn't agree. So they're like, Jeff, we're sorry, but there's a little clause in there that we feel is not applicable to the government, and so thus we feel like, you shouldn't do the clip. I'm like, how hard is this? But they said you can, at your own risk, as an individual, show it and just ask nobody to kind of watch it and nobody to kind of send the brief on. And I was like, well, thanks. No, that's not helping me. And then they said, if Sony does happen to want to sue me, it'll probably cost them 50 or 60 grand. It's probably not worth it. So go ahead. And I was like, well, thanks, but that could cost me like a lot more than that. And so, no. So we're not going to show my Moneyball clip. We'll just do some of our stuff if it shows. So stay tuned. And then we'll try to work for the DoD Symposium in Orlando. That's my tease. We'll hopefully work out with Sony Entertainment the legalistics, and I'll be able to show that little clip. So we'll try to talk through us at the Sustainment Center of what we do. And I'll talk from the operational perspective. And at the end, I'll give you all an opportunity as to where you can plug into us and where we put some of our investments. because that's where we're really talking about is, so this is kind of the what? Technology at the edge and living at the edge and doing stuff at the edge. I'm more like, I'm standing here, I can see the edge, I'm not gonna go to the edge. We're more like, we gotta scale it, it's gotta work. So we're more into the, how do I operationalize this? How do I tie it together? Is it scalable? And then apply, right? And as we're on the cusp of FY23, we're trying to close out 22. That's always a scramble. We're looking ahead to 23. We're right now in the season of POM planning factors for the working capital fund. So we're looking at 25 and out and putting our budgets in to put some investments in place. So we'll talk to that too. So let's get it going. So let's see if the buttons work. So we'll go forward one. Okay, so I think the theme is globes and the earth, and so I tried to amp up our AFSC 101 a little bit. And I know General Retired Day kind of probably seen a previous version of this, the 2D version. We're trying to get there a little bit. It's a notch better, you know, but lots of locations, 40-some-odd thousand people, multiple different activities from supply chain to depot operations to installation support, forward depot operations out at Kadena, another one out in the UK, Support Center Europe, Support Center Pacific. We're talking Support Center South Pacific, Support Center Eastern Europe, right? Mr. D, my boss, Mr. D'Angelo wants to talk like Support Center Lunar Station Alpha, right? Well, you know, with Elon Musk. We're working on that one. That's probably next year, guys, if you're going to ask me to come back. We'll see how this goes. And I'll panel myself on that. Maybe I'll discuss that a minute later on. But that's the Sustainment Center global look. We're big business. So last year I just talked to depots, but I, in fairness, want to take a step back because we're supply chains and we're everything to kind of keep the Air Force going, and not just legacy platforms. We're already working with folks for the B-21. We're talking with NGAD. We are talking to the space platforms and Sentinel and ABMS and all the cool stuff. You know, we're 24/7, but we're on some old architecture, right, and some old infrastructure. So that's kind of the big piece now we're working. It's kind of been my thing. On the path to Industry 4.0, we got a thing now we're trying to do, which is AFSC 2.0. Got to have some kind of O in there for everything. The 2.0, the 1.0, the 3.0s. So we're kind of working through all that to modernize and implement and execute. But again, it's got to be scalable, and I'll talk to some of that. So my chart, I think I talked to this a little bit last year, but you're like, what the heck is this, right? So this is a montage, right? It's a bunch of different little vignettes and pictures. On the far left is the Hammurabic stele that kind of governs a lot of our archaic processes, right? So that's the origins of an eye for an eye, or a talent of silver, or a cubit of measure, but some of our basic business processes, which are kind of still from this day, archaic, analog, Byzantine, Hammurabic, right? To the right is my English wheel, which I always usually talk about. So if we talk digital depot, I'll always chuck out a what about, because the English wheel we actually use today to work B-52 engine cows, for instance, which aren't quite as old as the English wheel or Hammurabi, but they're getting there, right? They're solid 1940s design, made in the 50s. We're putting warp drive engines on them right now. That's the next plan, but we'll keep them forever. But we're going to have the English wheel to support some of that. In the middle is some of the, I guess, coming out of the Bronze Age of Hammurabi and the English wheel and Iron Age is kind of the industrial age stuff that we've got, the heat treat and the furnaces and casting capability. And then to the right of that is kind of Industry 2.0, 3.0 stuff, like a CNC machine. And then to the far right is your additive manufacturing. Now you're starting to get to 4.0 if it's scalable and if we can network it up and tie it together. And it can be, yes, all that edge cool stuff, but it's got to connect to be interoperable, right? Anything can be ultra tech on the edge, but can it work with everything else? Can it try to deal with Hammurabic processes and then go all the way up to deal with a additive manufacturing, 3D printing capability that we have, like at Tinker with the React Cell or React 2, we just built another one. So last year, I think I hit, and at MITS, I talked about the speed of innovation, right? How do we tie things together? So technology at the edge, but like looking at things, when was the wheel invented, right? and then the speed of us applying the technology to, say, putting a wheel on luggage, that process took 6,000 years. So Homo sapiens, good job, right? So that's technology. Well, is it on the edge? Maybe. But is it, again, how did you scale it and think it through? So here's another one for us. So this is one I didn't do at WITS, and this is kind of unveiled. So simpler. When was the ice cube invented? Right? So for you techie types, when was the ice cube invented? No? 8 billion years ago? What? No guess? How about Nero? So he used to have his Roman legions trudge up the Alps back when they had snow and glaciers right back then before climate change. And they'd bring back ice so that Nero could have his libations, right, his drinks. So I kind of give him credit for thinking through the portability of ice. But then, of course, the freezer or bird's eye and all these things came about. But do you know, before that, there was the ice wars, right? So we had the fear of change. So the technology at that time had to deal with ice barons, ice ships, ice houses, which wasn't a beer at the time, right? But was the concept of kind of cutting ice blocks out of, say, the Potomac, the Hudson, these really pure, clean waters that we had, right? Nice, fresh, clean ice. And the fight was at the time as concepts like, I don't know, the refrigerator and ice cubes came about. At the time it was, you don't want artificial ice. You want the natural ice that comes out of, like the Hudson and has a horse with whatever horses do is they tromp on the ice pack and dig it up. And then it goes to like ice houses and sits around, right, with straw and goo and ick. You want natural ice. And so, again, that technology at the time had pushback against it. And, of course, then in the 90s, you had, filtered water and filtered ice. Although you have purists that want the drinks, they want, again, ice, or like Waterboy, ice hewn out of the glaciers and then brought down, back to Nero. So you still have, again, almost the equivalent of Hammurabic concepts, or Nero, bringing in the glacier ice, probably on a giant airplane and consuming all kinds of energy and climate change issues, and then back to your drink. So, but again, technology at the edge, tying things together, applying it, scaling it. Those are some of the issues for us. So for the Sustainment Center, those are kind of the things we face. Of some of the designs and some of the weapon systems we support go back to the 40s. Some of the capabilities we want tie right into today. Digital Depot, Industry 4.0. We have a workshop right now with our brethren and sistren out of ComFRC and NavAir, and we're talking Industry 4.0, scalability, tying things together, our system, our network of systems and IIoT applications, and our system called Athena, and working with them jointly, moving forward with our 6 aviation depots, right? Power to bear, bring it up to OSD, better buying power. So on the left side of this chart just talks about what we're required to do annually now up to Congress of our reports to modernize our depots. And in it, we've got a strategy of what's it take, the minimum investment, or what's to keep up our 6% by law investment. What's it take to then support readiness, the weapon systems of today and posture for tomorrow, so we call it catch up. And then what's it take to leap ahead or fully optimize what we have. And so this involves our 6% investment, so roughly our revenue per year is about $8 to $9 billion. You take 6% of that, so you're around $500 million every year that we invest back into our depots. And then it goes across those areas. Let's see if I can get this to work. Right. No. It bleeds out, right? So like I could probably poke myself in the eye with a laser, but I can't point. But those 4 dimensions that I show there are big investment areas. So infrastructure is a big one, like Milcon, like a hangar. So a KC-46 3-bay hangar to do corrosion, paint, washing. Those are hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And of course that counts. The hidden infrastructure piece, like a wastewater treatment, the environmental and energy pieces, that's a big piece, and we work through that. The equipment, so capital investment program is a big chunk. So again, my machines I talked about, from the English wheel and their modernization to an additive manufacturing machine, from Iron Age all the way up to the industrial age, digital age, innovation age we're in today, is that. And then what I'm going to dive into here today is the fourth dimension, our digital depot efforts, right? And talk through that and where you can come in and help us, because we've got some dollars and some requirements in 23, and then we're going to scale it some more in 24, and we're doing the POM planning factors for our rates in 25 today, right? So it's due in the next couple of weeks to walk up through AFMC and up to the Air Force and put some wedges in the budget. And so in that, we're going to add in some extra dollars. We've got kind of a notional approval from General Richardson as he's come on board, from General Hawkins who's come on board, and a rare alignment between me and our financial lead, Mr. Lewis. We're like, yup, this is probably something we've got to do, given where the nation is with the industrial base, where we've got to go, where Congress is with respect to wanting us to start investing more. And so all that, we're going to start coming in with some additional dollars for our Air Force depots, and I'll talk to that. Okay, so our digital depot piece. So this is our little slice of Industry 4.0. This is what we're working with the Navy this week on. So ComFRC across 6 aviation depots to share a common approach, common aspects of industrial plant management, process management, is kind of wiring up our factory. So again, think about the CNC machine. Think about even that English wheel, if I could track its usage, because there's things, even if it's old school, maybe that's some of our best yield comes across some of those products. Said the other way though, it helps us track machines that aren't that value added, that we spent a lot of money on, it never got installed, it never works, it's not useful. Maybe we need to divest that. So there's a big deal with some of this to be able to track it. It's uptime, it's downtime. The other piece of it's tied to the backbone of the program offices. I know you've had workshops, panels. General Morris kind of talked their side, but the program office side is when they come in and put this in PLM and we get the bill of material that's digital, be it births in like a B-21 or an NGAD, or it gets kind of brought in, from analog to digital. We can then bring that data in and we can either repair it, make it, or do something with it so that it can rapidly respond to a warfighter need. And so this, at the lower level, is where we're coming in with big investment dollars. So as I mentioned, for 25, we're working $100 million in additional investment is kind of right now what our moonshot is. So we've got roughly $500 million. The bulk of that is infrastructure. But starting in 25, we're going to come in with some extra dollars for this area, for our hidden infrastructure pieces, so some of the environmental pieces, energy pieces, in addition to the basic foundational areas. And then, of course, integrate it, as I've mentioned. So working our business processes and all these things together. So I'll talk through some of that. So to give a feel, let's see. So I'm going to taunt the IT gods, but let's try to give you a feel for Athena and our digital depot vision. So let's kind of see if we can roll video. It's a good sign. We got sound, we got video.
The year is 1940. While World War II rages across Europe, the United States remains militarily uninvolved. In Oklahoma City, businessmen sense shifting alignments and advocate for an aircraft repair facility. The War Department grants their request, and construction begins on the Midwest Air Depot. Utah and Georgia also begin construction on repair facilities.
Flash forward to present day. The still bustling air logistics complexes in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Ogden, Utah, and Warner Robins, Georgia are now home to over 30,000 employees and millions of square feet of industrial space.
The complexes are big business and key to America's defense and the local economies. But amazingly, while modernization has occurred, many of the processes and facilities have not appreciably changed since the days of World War II.
Daily, at all 3 ALCs, maintenance of legacy aircraft and modern weapon systems collides in facilities that are part museum and part Hollywood. Today's complexes are made up of amazing men and women who, on a daily basis, are performing heroic actions as the Air Force's weapon systems, engines, and numerous components are dismantled, restored, and put back into service. These artisans keep both aging and modern systems maintained, while using equipment and facilities well past their useful life.
But this is not sustainable. We need to honor the legacy of the depots and equip them for the future. We need to capitalize on technology that we use in our everyday lives and look forward to the future while protecting and securing these resources from cyber attacks and threats of a new digital age.
Enter Digital Depot. Imagine a future where shop floor personnel have the data and tools at their fingertips that they need to quickly and efficiently do their jobs. Imagine a depot that takes full advantage of smart technology. Digital Depot efforts will modernize the AFSC industrial floor, saving time and money, as well as increasing quality as AFSC supports all aspects of Air Force operations and enables the Air Force to generate combat air power. In short, imagine a shop floor like this: human-to-machine interface, machine data that drives real-time business process automation, real-time views of capacity, quality, and performance across all ALCs, machines that provide day-to-day reporting functions, unlocking the bandwidth of our people to focus on analysis and improvement.
Machine-to-machine interface, machine learning and artificial intelligence that provides preventative maintenance and production automation. Securely open data transmission from shop floor machining functions to enterprise analytic capabilities.
Maintenance and process improvements across all ALCs through deployment of cutting-edge technology, effortless connectivity using 5G, and threat detection and remediation.
The evidence of greatness lies all around us.
Pocket efforts have already begun, transforming the depots into 21st century industrial spaces. These efforts include establishing a dedicated control systems network, industrial Internet of Things pilots, near real-time monitoring of CNC machine mission capability, deployment of sensors powered by temperature and vibration, large-scale 5G pilots, and robotic process automation.
Now, the burden is on us to continue the incredible work that started in 1940, to carry on the technological advances that the 21st century has brought us.
As a team, let's work together to ensure that this legacy carries far into the future. It's easy to see the criticality of the Air Force's depot to the security of our nation. Much harder, though, is the task at hand, protecting our organic industrial base for future generations of warfighters and sustainers.
All right, it worked. That's good. We tried to get James Earl Jones to do the voiceover, but he wanted way too much money. You know, it would have been probably still the analog depot if we would have done that. So that gives you a feel for some of what we're trying to do. And like I said, a lot of it is taking technology near the edge, but then how can I apply it and scale it? That's kind of where we're at, right? So be in the realm of reality. Push it a bit in SBIRS, push it a bit with some of the efforts with RSO, with AFRL. But really to start in 23, we were going to take some dollars to then tie it together in different shops and then enclaves, all the way up to our campus constructs that tie to our organic industrial base modernization effort that we have to report up to Congress and in 5-year blocks over a 20-year horizon. So Athena is what I'll neck down even farther, and probably this audience will be interested in. So this is our architecture and technology hosting environment for AFSC that we're bringing on board. So we've come in with some initial dollars in 22. We're scaling some of it more in 23. We've had OSD support us with some 5G experimentation dollars and also some portability dollars coming in. Now on the left again, back to history, right? So Hammurabi, this is a little after Hammurabi, but the Greeks and the Greek goddess Athena to get us again back to genres, but not as much in the Iron Man stuff, trying to push it a little bit to think through and put a softer edge on this, but with some power is why we picked Athena. There's 3 aspects to it, and we'll go into that later. But tied into it is also to modernize our business processes, right? So it does us no good to have a full-up digital capability, but we've got analog processes. It does us no good to fully wire up a factory, but on the front end, if you remember my picture of the Hammurabic stele, right, of the eye for an eye, the talent of silver, the cubit of measure, the archaic business processes that we have, it does us no good if we can't bring all that together. So on the left side of this chart just shows you where we are with our supply chains as well as our depots. They really have to work together. the melee of different legacy processes we have today. Last year, I didn't want to talk to this. I'll talk to it a little bit this year. So I said, I won't talk our business systems, IT. I was just going to talk Athena and the digital depot. This year, I'm telling you, we're also coming in with dollars to look at our legacy systems. So we've got A4 approval, the A4 portfolio board. We've got AFMC A4 and A4N approval to in 23, start looking at our legacy supply chain and come up with a supply chain initiative requirement to mate it up to our new depot maintenance system, MROI. MROI is coming in 24. We're going to install it and start running it in the propulsion back shops, MVP4 in 24. The right side of this chart kind of shows you some of the entities we're looking at, but in the middle is probably an area you're familiar with of the SCORE model, right? Plan, source, make, repair, deliver, return, and then enable features. What we have to do is tie all these capabilities together. Again, integrate them all. So we can't have these ultra edge unicorns out there that don't interoperate. Our depot system has to tie with the supply system that has to work with DLA's distribution system. They have to be tied into key enablers like our financial systems, right? If you don't have money, it ain't gonna work. The HR systems, time and attendance, quality, right? Literally had one of the vendors say they're struggling with one of the legacy systems as they're trying to go digital in a legacy platform in the depot back shop. They're struggling on how to print the M stamp, right? And the quality stamp for depot maintenance, right? So again, envision Nero's ring or Hammurabi's stele or the wax they use to press into the papyrus, right? They're trying to duplicate that. No, that's no bueno, right? So before we go buy that, and you know, no, I don't want to do that, right? So how do we tie? It's got to work all together. And so we're doing that. So in 23, we're going to come in with some dollars. We're going to look for industry expertise to help us. We've got some money to work that with AFMC A4N. We've got some other dollars that we can probably siphon off. Right now, our old archaic stock control system, again, ties back to the Hammurabic days. We're code rolling it, right? It's built in the old COBOL code. And we're going through and bringing it into Java. But why do all that if again, you're just paving a cow path over, right? If it's an old way, right, that you're just making modern, right? You're doing the old stuff faster is all. So we're going to look at that too and perhaps peel some of those dollars off again towards a modern solution that ties into our maintenance applications that also blends in with where we want to go with tracking the digital depot capabilities and then be on the backbone of Athena, right? So this kind of gives you a feel for the big areas we got. So if you want someone to talk to, if you have something to do, and I doubt there's many that do facilities, infrastructure, work with Army Corps, AFCEC, you want to build a hangar for us or an industrial waste treatment plant, you're probably in the wrong meeting. But hey, if you want to do that, I got a name for you, right? Get with Bruno and our guys. We do the organic industrial-based planning. We've got literally all the time Congress asking, how can I help you? We're doing a drill right now for a $100 million wedge into 23 to look at facility infrastructure improvement, right? Shovel-ready projects to help roofs, roads, and like heating, things like that. We're doing information technology, so Athena, and where we want to go, digital depot, IIoT, data platforms, lashing it up into AO, authorizing official boundaries and doing RMF packages and all that cool stuff. If you have your ilk in that area, talk to Tim, Dr. Meister. He's our center IT lead. He's also works with Wayne Ayer, who I apologize, he couldn't make it, but our digital, everything digital, fabric, digital data, digital blank stuff, right, that you've heard from General Morris or from Lance and Conley or the folks in AFRL, RSO. So that's Tim. Our depot equipment and investment, so that's Lois and crew show. So that's where we buy the machines and the OT that comes onto the backbone. And again, if you sell some squishinators or slicinators or anything like that that makes stuff, talk to us. We've got money. We're putting more money in that area starting in 25. And then business process modernization, so the piece I just talked about. So integrating the various systems together. an industry-leading practice? How can we get out of the Hammurabic age or the Nero age or the artificial versus the natural ice arguments, right? How can we really move forward in a common sense way to not wheel spin, to not waste dollars in way techie edge stuff, but it doesn't interoperate, or it causes me, like you sell me something for $1 million, but it costs me $100 million in interoperability issues, right? I don't need that. I don't need that. We've done that. We've done that times 10. So we want to kind of measure twice, cut once, as we move forward. So this crew is where we're going to come in with some heavy money and get some backing through General Richardson. Some of this will tie into General Richardson's big vision and lines of effort from AFMC as well. So he'll talk about integrated capabilities across the centers. So we're all about that with our business process modernization. Talks about revolutionizing our processes. So us in the Sustainment Center are the kings of Kaizen, right? Incremental change. That's the Japanese term for it. Or Pokioke, or these terms you've used for decades of TQM, quality, right? Deming, the book, The Goal. A term we don't use that often, though, from the Japanese folks, that in Toyota way, is kaikaku. Kaikaku is radical change, revolutionizing, changing the way you even look at things. To coin a phrase from Elon Musk, it's taking your requirement and making it less dumb, looking at it from a more practical perspective, right? He's got a story where on the Tesla line, they were shuddering from scalability issues. One of the big areas was just to put the lithium batteries on the car and wrapping it with the insulation, and that install time was adding days to the flow days of the production line, and it was affecting deliveries, stock prices, investment. It was hitting them in a major way. So he brought in his team of engineers. He brought in sound insulation engineers and the production engineers, and as well as the heat engineers to talk about this issue. Why was it taking so much time to install the battery, the fit and finish of the insulation? And talk about the requirement less dumb. It turned out that production blamed both sides of the engineering. And then the two engineers, heat and sound insulation, pointed at each other saying it was the other person's requirement. Right? Neither side would own up to the fact you even needed insulation around the battery. So Musk said, take the insulation out, install it, and let's do a sound and rattle test, and let's check it on the heat. And if it works, just sell it. Let's go. And that's kind of what they did. They saved days off the production line. So again, making the requirement less dumb, working through things in a pragmatic manner. That's kind of where we're trying to go, is tie all this together. So, Sean, I think I'll leave a little bit of time if they want to do questions, or I want to sit here and I can panel myself if you want to.
Yeah, you want to be a panelist?
Sit down. Facilitate.
Yeah. First question is for Jeff Sick from AFSC. You talk a lot about AFSC and what you're doing.
Yes.
With U.S. Space Force, how do you support U.S. Space Force? And will there be any changes with the Space Force in terms of supply chain and other support?
That's a good question. So I always joke that, like our boss, Mr. D'Angelo, wants us to support space, look out 50 years, and put Moon Station Alpha out there. I always joke, too, that we've got some people I'd probably nominate to kind of put on that and put in orbit right now. But we're working with the Sentinel program. We're working, so our piece, the rocketry out at Ogden. Our software team is embedded right now with Sentinel. And of course, anything to do with space application, ABMS, and all those things in between to use space platforms, but on Earth or wherever they want to go. And then for the future, we're going to start working with NASA. We're going to work with SpaceX. We're going to tie in with AFRL, not just the technology, but what is it for terra firma for our aviation and space depots and supporting space, but also for the future. What should we do? Be it the infrastructure at our big three or globally. I talked about the support center, Europe, Pacific, South Pacific. Can we leverage with Transcom, for instance? They want to do a SBIRS with Falcon 9 rockets to launch cargo. We talk about that with our aircraft battle damage teams, expeditionary depot maintenance. I joke sometimes I'll put some of them on a rocket ship, we'll get them astronaut badges and send them in to go fix airplanes. But seriously, we are thinking through those applications as to what we can do for rapid response in a global world, and again, to support the space side. So that's a good question.
Great. Next question. You mentioned Mr. Ayer and some of the work he's doing and Dr. Meixner and digitalizing in the depot. How are you working with the acquisition community to make sure that we're aligned so what we're putting on contract and acquisition feeds into the sustainment community and we can create that enterprise that we talk about?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one is on our side, we're doing our own acquisition. So we just kind of will burst through it and do our acquisition activity, but we are working an integrated master schedule so for each program. So like we're just meeting now with Navy, they're tracking it by platform. So the H1, the H53, and when they're going to digitize or the new systems coming in. Same with us. So platform by platform, as they go through the process to digitize, to get into PLM and Team Center, that drives our digital BOM, which drives our electronic work package that then can go into our mechanic, right, where the mechanic's in the middle and they've got, think of them as a surgeon, and they have everything they need from their tech data to the machine that knows whether it's ready to go. They're certified and signed off to use that machine. They're certified and signed off to use that tech data. We don't have to do an M stamp, right? It's tied to their CAC card or other tracking capabilities. And then that asset, be it a commodity item, an engine, piece of software, or an aircraft itself, has the pedigree that when it sells, it can go out and we can track it with concepts like CBM Plus and these kind of things. So it all has to tie in with our program offices. Some we have leads on. For the future, it's B21. Right now with CBM Plus, it's C130. But we also work with Mr. Ayer and crew to make sure we have vertical alignment with all the different individual program offices as they go and modernize and get us out of like the Mylars, right, the tubes of Mylar that have the drawings on them for my B-52, right? But as we put warp drive engines on the B-52, that's a digital design. I joke, it's not really warp driven, right? But with Rolls-Royce, we're gonna bring in electric glass cockpit and kind of rewire the B-52. And so in those silos of excellence, we're moving out. But again, the issue is integrating it all together vertically. That's kind of where we're focused on. Good question.
Okay. Another quick question for you. Are you taking steps towards a digital thread that will go down to a tail number to enable future tracking of the tail, maintenance done, planning for maintenance, et cetera?
No. Yeah, we need to think of that. I'm just kidding. Yes. Obviously, the question is like, what would I say to that? No, we're not. We need to think of that. But yes. How's that? Yes. All that.
Okay.
I got like 30 seconds. How can I,
All right.
There's no way I can do
Real
it.
quick, someone said, and I'm interested in the answer to this. You mentioned there's workshops this week with NavAir, Industry 4.0 across the depots. Is the goal to have Athena include modernization across the FRCs?
Stay tuned. Yeah, that's like, on all the Batman movies or whatever, the comics, they just tell you everything, right? And it's like, you got to stay tuned. You got to come to next year's WITS and MITS. And you got to come to the DoD symposium.
That's right.
Right? Got to stay tuned. Same bat time, same bat channel. But I'm not going to tell you everything, not all my secrets. Plus, where's the RSO? I don't even know. I'm going to tell you where it is. It's at the Gap, if you know where that is. But it's a secret. It's a secret where they even are.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that. No, this has been a great presentation. Honestly, I really appreciate that. We're going to throw a curveball to you guys. We are not going to break.
Oh.
We are not going to break. Miss Yvonne is coming up. And